Today I'm going to be talking about an interesting story that I have with an apple. I had a video idea and I wanted to know and understand and educate everyone that would watch the video on what exactly was inside an apple. An apple, the most common fruit that is probably eaten inside of at least the UK and the Western world, the advanced world in general. An apple, the most common thing that people would understand. I wanted to find out in the most brutal way. I would get down, do a lot of research, what was exactly contained inside of an apple. Every form of molecule in its percentage, quantities by mass and by numbers in general, its elemental composition. I wanted to find it all out, put it all down into a script and educate those who would watch the video on it. I could not find that much whatsoever. Of course, an apple contains carbons, hydrogens, oxygens, maybe a little bit of sulfur, some phosphorus as well, because all the ATPs, the coenzymes that contain some of those not necessarily rare but less common elements inside of nature. I wanted to find out the quantities of these inside of any apple, a random apple on average, because all apples are going to have different elemental compositions and molecular compositions. Of course, that seems like quite an obvious thing to say. So just take an average. Instead of giving me like a range, I would say to the viewers that would watch the video, this is like an average, this is the middle point of all the values that I was given, and here it is. There is 71% hydrogen in an apple, etc, etc, etc. Trouble was, I could not find that much at all because there was so much stuff inside of an apple. You would not believe this. The scale that these molecules occur on is actually much smaller than what you could possibly imagine in a way. Apples probably contain so many compounds that will have things like chlorine. They will have they'll have like one molecule per apple or something that contains a fluorine atom. All the stuff that I was getting off of YouTube, ChatGPT, so many different science websites that I was like gruelingly going through all this stuff, trying to find some knowledge that I could relay onto the people that follow my channel. But I was really struggling. I was struggling to find the let's go off of elements for now, but I was wanting to know how many molecules are inside of an apple. Obviously, water is going to be the biggest thing. Water, it was said around 70 to 80% of an apple is literally just water. Then around 5% is fructose, the fruit sugar, the most common sugar that's found inside of fruits. And then after that, it went down and down and down. But after fructose, I didn't really get any specific thing. It then said there's going to be a few fats and proteins, and they would say like 2%, a few like complex, really complex things like pectin, cellulose, starch, carbohydrates, and that will make up around another 10%, etc. It wasn't giving me specific things that I wanted, and obviously I went into this knowing that I probably wasn't going to get the exact molecular figures because there's going to be some intermediates of metabolic processes that are going to be inside of the apple at any given time, and I'm not going to be able to say for definite that there is this amount of this inside of an apple. But I kind of did this, and I found it so interesting that all the research that I found said that scientists are yet to understand what is even contained inside of an apple. That statement absolutely fascinated me and blew my mind. An apple, the most common fruit that exists, humans don't even know what is contained inside of an apple. When you consider a processed food, you look at a processed food, right? You look at some McDonald's burgers, you look at all the different antioxidants, the E450s, the emulsifiers, the dextrose, the salts, all of this stuff, the xanthan gum, all of that stuff that's contained inside of the food that you eat that you don't even know actually exists. All of the weird chemicals that exist inside of things like fast food that a lot of people realistically do eat and do take a liking to because they are purposely made that way. They're purposely made to taste nice because they contain a bunch of additives and chemicals to make it taste that nice, which is like quite interesting. We understand what's contained inside of fast foods more than we understand what is contained inside of an apple. That seems counterproductive. Of course, there's going to be things inside of an apple that we don't even know actually are inside of there. That means that, it's going to be more processed, which almost seems like quite a fair enough thing to say. We don't understand everything that's inside of an apple, so that technically contains more chemicals, because obviously everything from water to cyanide is a chemical. An apple contains more chemicals by definition than something like a McDonald's burger does, because it only contains, it's basically processed so that it's a bunch of junk that contains no nutrients, none of the chemicals that an apple would, the phytovitamins, the vitamins themselves, the minerals themselves, the flavonoids, etc., etc., all the stuff that's really complicated and doesn't contribute calorifically, but is still very vital to our body's functioning. All of that is taken out during the processing processes of what happens inside of factories, etc. And then they'll like put it together. You've got your little McDonald's beef burger, your little plastic cheese, your buns that contain nothing but a little bit of complex carbs like starch, which is basically just glucose connected together, as well as sucrose and loads of other simple refined sugars inside of the McDonald's bun. It's not got that many chemicals in it when you actually consider how many chemicals are inside of a McDonald's burger, considering all the complicated stuff has been taken out during processing. So hopefully you now understand that an apple, by definition, by chemical definition, is literally more complicated than a lot of the fast foods that exist and that a lot of people, by the way, eat on a daily basis, which is incredibly interesting because that sort of ties in with the whole what actually is food, which I'm going to make a separate video on, and all the such weird and complicated and fancy chemicals that contain so many different elements that aren't sort of the sulfur, phosphorus, oxygen, hydrogen, and carbon. And while they would contain some of these elements, maybe just these elements, there'll be so many other things that just people and scientists don't even really understand, because these fruits, these things, these beautiful things that nature creates for us to eat, they're so complex. And it's almost like we shouldn't really delve into them because we know an apple is healthy. We've done studies, we've done scientific things onto apples. We know that it's good for us. We know how many vitamins and minerals it contains. So of course, it's like we shouldn't brood and probe any further into this stuff because there's so many different phytochemicals and vitamins and minerals and flavonoids and phytonutrients. All of this complex stuff. You look at a molecule of vitamin B12, that is the most wacky stuff that I've ever seen. You imagine like your normal ethane or methane, that is like triple, that is at least 20 times the size of one of these molecules. That is how insane some of these things are. And there's going to be molecules that are bigger than this, that are just monomers, not polymers, but they are the monomers that are 10 times bigger than the vitamin B12 that exists inside of an apple. It's absolutely mad that this stuff actually exists. And I really hope that you now can go away from this video understanding that what is inside of an apple is what actually makes you full and satiated. The McDonald's burger that's had everything taken out of it isn't very satiating. It's soft, it's dry, but an apple, it's very moist, it's got a lot of water inside of it, but it's also got a load of those phytochemicals, flavonoids that actually makes you full because, it's so interesting. It's so interesting. I really hope you can take away from this video that apples are real food. They contain a heinous amount of chemicals and vitamins that are actually good for you, and they make you full, and they mean that you don't eat so much bad junk that isn't good for your health, no matter whether you're on a calorie deficit, surplus, etc. It just isn't good for your general health and longevity whatsoever. With that, I hope you are now educated and have the knowledge on what actually is inside of an apple, which no one even actually knows, but the fact that you now know that no one knows that is a very interesting thing, because now you know that what's inside of an apple is a special thing, and you should eat it, because that's the reason that it's special, because it's so hard to understand, because all of these chemicals do amazing things in our body that we don't even have the capacity and the technology to understand yet. But with that, I recommend subscribing, because I love this community of young tribal people who are willing to improve themselves, smarter than you already have, and good luck.